Hello, and welcome back to the Common Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and on today's podcast, I get a chance to interview Nicole Schwartz, who is a friend and colleague. She is also a licensed marriage and family therapist and parent coach with over 15 years of experience working with families and children in various settings. She is the owner of Imperfect Families and the author of a great book called It Starts With You, which is all about coaching parents to use positive, respectful parenting strategies. She lives in St. Louis, Missouri with her husband and 3 daughters. And in our interview, we get a chance to really dive deep into what happens around the shame spiral with parenting and how we can talk to ourselves in a more kind way as parents and be okay with being imperfect. So I hope that you enjoy this podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Common Connected podcast. This is Janine, and I'm here with Nicole Schwartz, and I'm so excited to have you here, Nicole. Thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Excellent. So you and I have known each other for, oh my goodness, a few years now, but I wanted to just introduce you to my audience. And can you share a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today for people who aren't familiar with your work?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a mom to 3 girls. So I have a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, and 7-year-old right now. So heading into those teen years. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've never done marriage therapy. I've always worked with kids and families. And so the first couple of years I was doing that, I started slowly shifting away from working with kids to working more with the parents. I wanted to really empower parents to be able to do the strategies throughout the week. And so the last 8 years or so, I've been doing parent coaching. So I meet with parents online and we talk through parenting concerns. I'm also the owner of Imperfect Families, which is my blog and where I write. And my most recent project is a book coming out called It Starts With You. Actually, it might be out already. And so talking a lot about parenting professionally and then also working on it every day with my own kids at home. So
isn't that the truth? I mean, that is what, like, if you were a counselor and you were a parent, the things that you are working on every day that you're talking with families about, that you're it pops up in your own life every single day.
Yes.
Every day.
Lots of chances to practice for sure.
Yes.
So,
and I love your blog, Imperfect Families, and I actually always send people there and I post about them a lot on my Facebook page just because I love your practical style when it comes to talking about parenting. Like, I think that sometimes when you read parenting people, like parenting experts, which I always feel like is weird, like anyway, but to say, you know, this is real life. Like, it's messy and it's not great all the time and we mess up and that's okay. And I love that. So just full disclosure, I'm one of those people who got an advanced copy of the book and I was able to read it beforehand and I love it. I love it. It's so great. And one of the things that really spoke to me when I was reading it was that shame spiral for parents, like, you feel guilty. You see these moms on Instagram making charcuterie plates for their children, or you feel like you shouldn't take time for yourself because you feel shame about it. You know what I mean? Like, all of that can come up for families. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that and, thinking about how we can be kind to ourselves and embrace those imperfections.
Yeah, for sure. I think shame is so sneaky. Like, I feel like for a lot of us, it doesn't start out as like, I'm a horrible person. It's just those little things. Like, even yesterday, I went to the wrong place for my daughter's Girl Scout meeting. And so she was late. And so my first thought was like, oh, like, a good mom would know where the Girl Scout meeting is or whatever. And it so quickly just goes from like, I made a mistake to I am a mistake. And I feel like sometimes it happens without us even realizing how far down. And then the longer we kind of live in those, oh, I should be doing that, or should be doing that, or shouldn't be doing this, how it becomes kind of part of us. And that's why I call it a spiral, because I think we just kind of end going real deep sometimes. So I'm like I said, I'm still battling this myself, but yeah, kindness for sure. I think that's the first part. Well, let me back up. Maybe the first part is just noticing it, right?
Yeah.
And so noticing when it comes up. So like even yesterday when I said that, it took some, inner working dialogue to be able to say, is that true? Is that honest? Is that fair and kind to yourself? Probably not, So first, naming and noticing, heading down a shame spiral, starting to see myself as a big mistake rather than I made a mistake. So starting that. And then the second part, I think, would be where that kindness and compassion comes in. And I like to just say, how would you talk to a friend about this? Like if your friend forgot where the Girl Scout meeting was, would you be like, you are a horrible mom? I mean, I hope not. Think of a good friend maybe for this exercise. I think you'd probably be like, yeah, you have a lot going on. It's a common mistake. You're still a good mom. And so instead of just, I feel like even noticing and naming, then there's still that piling shame and judgment on top of ourselves. So thinking about how another friend would talk to us sometimes is a good place to start.
I love that strategy. It's actually one that I use a lot with my teen clients who are having that negative self-talk that's happening. And I agree with you, that shame stuff can happen so quickly. It happened to me a few weeks ago when I was, I needed to make an appointment for my kid and I spaced on it. Like I didn't do it. Didn't do it for like a good 2 months. And then I finally was like, oh, I'm so horrible because I did not make, like, what mom forgets about an appointment that their kid needs? And I was like, and again, it was like that sort of like positive self-talk, like, would you let your friend talk to you like this? I say it to myself all the time. And I think about like my good friends who would be like, Janine, knock it off. And you know what I mean? You like need that internal person to be like, no, stop it. You're being ridiculous. It is one mistake. It is not going to be the end of the world. He's
Yeah.
fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Let's move forward.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not even a mistake. Like sometimes we make mistakes and it's genuine mistakes. And sometimes I think we beat ourselves up because we don't know something, or we haven't like mastered a skill or something. So I think about I say mistake a lot. And I think that a lot of times we do beat ourselves up for mistakes, but sometimes it's just like, wow, I'm really not great at connecting with my 10-year-old yet. I don't know how, I used to play, now I don't know how to play. Like, okay, that still doesn't mean that you're a horrible person or a big mistake. You're just in the process of learning. So again, like, how would a friend respond to you?
Yeah, no, I love that strategy. And I feel like whenever I talk to moms who are also therapists, who are also counselors
Yeah.
in the helping profession, this is something like we are struggling with this too. It's not that we're not, we try to talk to ourselves, I think, a little bit differently, and we know what we need to do. We don't always do it necessarily right away, but we'll eventually get there. So
For sure. Yeah. And I think the great thing about when we're able to start digging our way out of the shame spiral, that's where the growth can happen. I think when we're so stuck in it and we feel so bad about ourselves and we keep piling that shame on, it's really hard to move forward. Like you just feel like such a bad mom or a bad parent or a bad person. But when you're like, okay, this was a mistake, I'm not a mistake, then you can start seeing that growth. Like, oh, here's where I can learn from that. Okay, I got to check the calendar a little bit more closely next time. And it doesn't have to turn into like a self-hatred.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that can happen so quickly in so many different ways, like that self-hatred piece or like that shame spiral, especially when it comes to like our kids maybe behaving in a way that doesn't feel great for us, right? Like if they are not doing something that we want them to do, or they're not listening, or they're having some really big emotions and really showing them in really big ways. As kids do. I wanted to just check in with you about that because you mentioned in your books, parents should have an attitude of curiosity about what's going on with your child. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I feel like as parents, we often come in with like an all-knowing persona. Like, I know exactly why you're doing this, and I have the perfect solution for you. And so I think there are two problems with that. One is it really keeps us from seeing what's really going on. We look at like the hitting and we're just like, oh, you're a hitter, you're aggressive, whatever. We don't ever look deeper. But also it keeps like it restricts the conversations that we have with our kids. So rather than seeing us as being on the same team and we could problem solve together, it's like, you don't have any good ideas, it's just my ideas and these are the best ones. So instead of doing that, I talk a lot about being curious. And so curiosity is just looking at behaviors or things that our kids are saying or things that we're doing with non-judgmental, a non-judgmental lens, we'll say it that way, I guess. And so it's asking why is this occurring? What's significant about this time? Who's involved? Who's not involved? What might be the needs that our kid is trying to get met in this certain way? It also kind of helps us problem solve in a way that actually gets to the results that we're looking for. So like, for example, if you saw your kid, let's say your child is refusing to do their homework. So one path might be just look at the surface level behavior and just say he's lazy, doesn't care about grades, whatever. And that really pigeonholes you into your solutions. Like you're basically like, I'm going to force you to sit here and this is the, I don't know, whatever, maybe not. But if you see it like with curiosity, you might be able to say, wow, what is going on for you? And how is it all subjects, or is it just this one subject? Or is it this certain part, or is it this part? Or how are you doing energy wise? Or what was your day like? All sorts of questions opened up like a huge path for solutions that we might not have seen before. And so we can help our kids work together with them and see more solutions that actually meet the needs and get the results that we want.
Having an attitude of curiosity, it's so interesting because it means that you actually have to take a pause and not try and fix it right away, or like get a, like you have to actually like kind of keep yourself together when you're trying to have this attitude of curiosity. So I saw this play out in my local coffee shop. This poor mother, she has like her kid, she's two kids, she's got a dog, and she's like waiting outside, and she sends the bigger kid in to get a snack, right? And the kid's like, I can't get the snack. And she's like, forget it. And turns out the blue Doritos were too high. So so that was the problem, right? And so initially she was like, forget it. But then she's like, and then she stopped and she was like, what is it? And then he was able to say, the blue Doritos are too high. Now I'm sitting here and I'm waiting patiently for my coffee. And so I'm like, oh, buddy, do you need the blue Doritos? Because I'm right here and I can reach them with my short self, but like, I can still reach those for you because I'm an adult. So I got them down for him. And I was like, well, I'll wait with you here. Cause like he had the money and then he had to like get the change and the Doritos. It was a lot of stuff he was trying to, you know. So, and then he was like, then I walked him back outside to his mom and she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was like, it's cool. But like, she paused. And how much better did the afternoon go?
Right.
Because then he was like, I feel empowered because I went into a store by myself and I bought my own blue Doritos. And then she understood him and she got him. So it's that attitude of curiosity, but it takes a moment. Cause like, I understood that she was getting frustrated. And listen, I've been there too, but it's hard to pause. It's hard to pause.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a key that I think we overlook. I think a lot of strategies I talk about in the book and on my website, they're much slower than we would like to parent. We want to just like get in there and solve it and make the feelings go away and do this and that. But you're right. Like that's such a great example of, it wasn't that he was saying, I can't do it. Or it was like, no, literally I can't.
I literally can't reach the Doritos that I want.
Yeah, right. That's such a great example. And so like, we could apply that to so many different situations where our kids appear to be saying one thing with their behavior or their words, We just go with it rather than sitting with it for just a little bit. That pause.
Yeah, that pause is, and I think that pause is hard in this world where things are busy. And if you've
Yeah.
got like you've got a schedule, and your spouse has a schedule, and your kids have schedules, and it means like if you want to pause, you really got to pause a lot of stuff and be okay with that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, this needs to be said so many more times because it, yes, if you want to do this well, so many other things are going to have to go slower. And you're right, that's pushing against just our society and how your family might be running and how things are going. And going back to shame, like, let's just normalize that. Let's just say, this is different than how you parented before, or this is something new. And let's say you try it and you don't realize how slow you have to go or how many things need to pause. And it's hard and you don't like it. And maybe you stop doing it or you do it for a while. And then again, does not mean you're a bad person or that you are a mistake. It just means this is a new way of parenting. And this is different than maybe you were doing your culture, your community, your family, whatever. So
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And you have to make the space in your life for it. And
yeah,
it's tricky to do that when you also feel this pressure to make sure that your kids are attending all the different sports events, and they're on all the teams, and they're doing all the things. Now, see, for me, like I don't for like I've never been that parent. I have never, but I understand the
yeah,
pull of it.
yeah,
I understand how quickly it can escalate, and suddenly like you're busy every day after school, and
yeah,
it's just didn't like I didn't like that feeling as a parent. And so then I was like, no, I need to pull this back. Like me as my own introverted self. I'm like, this is not, and watching my introverted, well, my younger introverted child who was
yeah,
like, I need no, no, no.
yeah.
And my daughter who's like, I could slow down.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think it's when we like, and I don't know, goes back to kind of naming and noticing too, and just saying something is not working here. And you don't have to have the solution. You don't have to even know the answer. I guess that's the solution, but you don't have to know. You can just stop and say, why? Why does this feel yucky in my body? Why is this not working for our family? What environmental things, what I mean, going on and on with the questions, but don't start with the solution. Like I think so often we do, like, I don't have time for this, but just know if you see that, I don't know, yeah, you felt it in your body, or maybe you see it in your kid's behavior, and let that be a sign to just pause just for a second.
Right. And to be okay with like reorganizing and rethinking your life. Like, and I know that sounds like really big, and
No,
but it's okay to take to reflect on, does this feel good to me? Does this feel good to my family? Is this what I want my life to be like? And
yeah,
it's like very big questions that are not easily answered,
right,
and and everybody sort of has their own answer to it. So you've got to figure out what works for you and your family. Who are you raising the kids with? How are you raising them? And what are the personalities of everybody involved? It's different for different families, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, even as I hear you talk about that, I'm like, each kid might need their own needs, and each kid, or they do have their own needs. They might have their own way of being. It's slow.
Yeah.
That's that's another slow step in this process. So just let it be slow.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I guess to go along with that,
Yeah.
that slowness, that pause, that moment when we as parents need to, sort of chill out, take a moment, take a breath. How do we stay calm in those spots? Because it's very, or when they're having a big emotion, where they're having big feelings, when they're showing their big feelings in big ways, how
Yeah.
do we stay calm as parents?
That's a great question. A lot of people are wondering this. Yeah. So I like to say we're not robot parents. We are going to have our own emotions and our own experiences and our own reactions. So let's just start there. So if your expectation is to be calm 100% of the time, no matter what the feelings and emotions are being thrown at you. Let's just take that off the table. We'll start there. I don't want you to stay there, in perfection. I also don't want you to be like, well, I guess it doesn't matter. We have to find a middle ground. So, man, it really ties in well with what we were just saying, because this is also really slow. So my first suggestion is just practice. Practice being in big feelings without reacting. I have a client that says she imagines herself as a rock and her kids as the storm or like the ocean or whatever. And so I just call it being a calm, confident center. And maybe you can do it for a couple seconds or a couple minutes at first. Great. Okay, maybe tomorrow you can add a second or two. That's fine. You don't have to like overnight master staying in big feelings with your kids. Small steps are great. So maybe you take some deep breaths, maybe not one, maybe 3 or 4. Maybe you use some of your amazing resources. You do some star breathing, some square breathing. I don't know. You tell us what we're going to breathe. I think we can change our body posture. So sometimes we can uncross our arms. We can unclench our fists. We can relax our jaws, sit in the chair, sit on the floor. Even just changing that. Maybe we need to walk away or get a drink of water or look out the window. I mean, I think sometimes we have these expectations that this just should come easily to us, and it's okay if it doesn't, if it takes these small steps over time to get you where you want to be. So I would start with those. I also think, I say this a lot, naming and noticing and naming our feelings. So maybe what comes up for you is, I would never be able to talk to my parents this way, or if I acted this way in my house, this would have happened to me. Okay, let's name that. Let's just say that out loud. And so it's not like in the background, running in the background of your parenting. And then you can kind of be curious about it and explore it and say, great, that was my experience. How did it feel to me? Is this the way I want to go forward? Probably not. What kind of parenting strategy would fit better with me? Whatever. But there's a lot of things that are never named. Maybe like we're really uncomfortable with our kids' feelings. Okay, let's just name it. And I don't mean to make it sound easy or fun or light or whatever, but I just want to give you permission. Start with these seemingly small steps before you expect to stay with your kids for a 2-hour tantrum.
Yeah. And it's okay. I love that it's a work in progress, that you don't have, it's not like you hear the strategy and you can do it 100% of the time. And nobody does anything 100% of the time.
Thank you.
No one. No one. So it's just really, it's giving yourself that grace and the permission to figure it out, take your time, and to make some baby steps in a way that you want to go. You want to go in this direction, so let's take a step and be comfortable with like, okay, I can do it for a minute. Fantastic. It's a minute more than yesterday. Good.
Right. And tomorrow you might not be able to make it a minute, and that's okay too.
Yep.
And so that's where that like still that self-compassion and kindness and talking, rather than being like, oh, you did it a minute yesterday, why couldn't you even? No, you just think, okay, what made today hard? Okay, yeah, you're having a tough time. Give yourself a hug or talk to yourself like a friend would talk to you. I mean, they're all these strategies seem to be overlapping.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's really great. And I always like to ask my guests, as we are wrapping up our time together, how do you like to rest and recharge?
This is a great question. Okay, so what I'm learning about myself as I grow, as I get older, is I like to be by myself. And I think that is looked down upon sometimes, but for me, it is so important that I need to be completely alone. Not even the dog can be home. And I am a big reader. I love taking walks, but there's something about just being in a space and not having to, I don't know, interact with anybody or serve anybody or whatever. So that for me, for sure. And also my new thing, like the word recharge is really interesting because I think that's how I rest by myself, but recharge. I got into woodworking. Did I tell you this?
No, that
So,
sounds
yeah.
awesome.
I have like my saws and my sanding things and my drills. And so like learning a new skill and being creative in a different way than I do has been really recharging for me.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. That's so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool. And it's brave to like start something new. It is.
Yes. Yeah. And I couldn't even tell you how I decided on that. It just, it's what I do now.
You know what? It's fine. And I hear you. In terms of like the needing to be by yourself, like, as you know, like we have a new puppy and
Yeah.
I want time by myself, like time in the car alone. If I have that time alone by myself, it is restful for me. Like I need to like have time at night where I'm not dealing with anybody and not doing anything, like after dinner, dishes are done, I'm upstairs and I am chilling out. I
Yeah.
need that. I need that. So I understand you on that absolutely.
Yeah. It's so great to figure out what is restful for us and to give ourselves permission to do that.
Yes.
A long time, I think I was like, why can't I just be with people all day? Oh, that's not how that works for me. So
Right. It's really it's self-exploration and like figuring out what is really going to be helpful for you and what works for you and then giving yourself permission to do it.
yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
Yes, we should give ourselves permission to do it. If people want to get your book or learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, you can find me at imperfectfamilies.com and on Instagram and Facebook at Imperfect Families. And there's links to my books there as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk with us, Nicole. And I will talk with you soon.
Okay, sounds good.